Hunters, you're going to want to make sure any handguns you have for the new Southern Michigan deer season are registered. If you're a rifle hunter, make sure that scope is zeroed in. Of course, bow hunters have lots of practicing to do and get their equipment in shape. And if you hunt with a shotgun, well, you're going to want to make sure it's cleaned, ready to go. You have plenty of shells. And what about the forecast for hunting? Well, Bob Garner and I have a species-by-species rundown for our 1986 hunting season, so stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. Bear season is our first major opener in Michigan, September 10th through the end of October in the UP, plus firearm deer season, and September 19th through the 25th in the Lower Peninsula. Now, most hunters either track bears with dogs or set out bait piles and wait in the morning or evening, but neither method is foolproof. Bears are omnivorous. They eat anything, plants, roots, insects, or other birds and animals, even fish. And bear meat is good eating. In fact, it's very good. It tastes a lot like beef, more so than any wild game I've had. You'll find bears in woodlands and swamps in the northern part of the state. Hunters usually take about 800 to 1,000 bears annually, and the population has remained stable in recent years.
In fact, nothing's changed much this year, Fred, from last year. Biologists in the UP figure that the bear population is just about the same as it was last year, which was a pretty good season. The biologists in the northern lower say right at the tip of the northern lower there might be a few more bears, but generally speaking, it's about the same as it was last year. So the forecast this year, well, it's going to be a good bear season and just about the same as last year.
The bear sightings, by the way, have been up. I think that's due to local conditions up there.
They sure have.
All over the state. And you know, September 15th is the general small game opener, ruffed grouse included, and the ruffed grouse season runs through November 14th. Plus, the Lower Peninsula has a late season during the month of December. Hunters usually use pointing dogs. English setters are a favorite to find these grouse in the woodland edges. And we have more and more of edges like this in southern Michigan, and grouse are moving south. They eat berries, bugs, gray dogwood, and young aspen stands are favorite feeding areas. Now, grouse meat is light and very delicate and tasty, something like chicken but without all the fat. The grouse population goes up and down, apparently all by itself from year to year. Hunting pressure doesn't seem to be a significant factor, and hunters usually take about 500,000 grouse from our northern woods.
And the grouse situation this year looks a little bit better than it was last year, especially in the Upper Peninsula. Been more sightings of grouse. Even the law enforcement officers up there have noticed a few more. So the grouse forecast ought to be fair to good, a little better than last year. Woodcock are up significantly, though. On the singing routes, they're up about 12%. Should look for plenty of woodcock shooting this year.
Well, it sounds good to me. I'm ready to go. This wind has been a problem lately, and especially the wind affects the dogs and how they work. But squirrel season is something that you don't hear a lot about. Squirrels are plentiful. They haven't required any management. Many have 2 litters a year, and about 80% of the squirrel population dies off by spring, whether they're hunted or not. Squirrels are a favorite food of predators, especially hawks and owls, and of hunters. Their meat is light, and you can cook squirrel any way you cook a chicken, and you'd be delighted, fried, baked, or in a stew. Squirrels eat nuts and vegetation, and the kind that we hunt down south here live in trees, but they like to run on the ground. Fox squirrels run on the ground, just like you see right there, but the gray squirrels like to jump from tree to tree. Now, they're hunted sometimes with dogs, especially the fox squirrels. They can pick up the scent on the ground, but most often by sitting or still hunting in the woods. In a good year, hunters will take 1 million squirrels in this state.
And this is going to be a good year. In fact, this is going to be an excellent year due to the fact a lot of corn wasn't harvested. Fox squirrels are abundant. The only place that squirrels are down a little bit is kind of in the northwest corner of the Lower Peninsula, but everywhere else, boy, there are really good numbers of them.
A simple season, Bob, the squirrel season, easy to figure out. Not quite the same situation with waterfowl, though. Waterfowl are the most complex seasons for all hunters to sort out. The DNR Waterfowl Guide is not printed and distributed yet. The basic seasons, though, are October 4th through November 12th in the UP, October 11th through the 19th in the Lower Peninsula. But check for local variations on rules, steel shot, the point system, and limits. It's complicated. But hunters are after 2 basic types of ducks, the puddle ducks like mallards that feed on roots and tubers in the shallow ponds, and the open water diving ducks that tend to eat a few more fish, and they taste like it too. Here we have some geese up there, which are often hunted along with ducks. Now, puddle ducks are my favorite to eat. The meat is dark, but it'll taste sort of like beef if you cook it medium and don't soak it in wine like too many people do. Retrievers are helpful in duck hunting, along with duck calling skills and a good tolerance for hunting in bad weather.
The duck population, too, is up over last year. There's no question about it, but the regulations are still pretty severe on how many ducks a hunter can take in a day's time. The goose season is going to be a good to excellent goose season because the flocks all over Michigan are still increasing.
Well, that's some good news there on duck hunting and waterfowl hunting, something on the increase. We don't find that in our October 20th through November 11th traditional pheasant season. In the 40s and 50s, hunters took millions of roosters. And by the way, only the males, the ringneck roosters, are hunted, so the yearly reproduction isn't affected. But in the past 20 years, the pheasant numbers have plummeted, and hunting wasn't a factor. The birds have changed. The survivors now seem to live in swamps, and they run. Bird dogs are useful, but a beagle or a hound sometimes is even better for hunting wild pheasants. Now, pheasants are meaty birds. They're good tasting, but they do have a lot of ligaments like turkeys, like you find in the drumsticks. Pheasants eat seeds. They feed like chickens. They prefer fields generally to the woods, but nowadays you better look for them all over. And the challenge of pheasant hunting, Bob, is becoming finding the pheasants.
And it's not an easy task this year. The problem is the pheasants bottomed out in population last year. There's a few more broods. They had less chicks this year. The only bright spots are maybe Lenawee, Hillsdale, Clinton County, Eaton County, but they are not very bright. It's going to be a very poor year for pheasants.
Maybe those Chinese Sichuan birds will change the picture. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see on those. Now, deer. You're looking right here at the bread and butter big game animal in this state. Bow hunting season opens October 1st. We take a break for the firearm season for the last 15 days in November, then back to the bow hunting season in December with a special muzzleloading season in early December. Now, deer like woodland edges. They bed in grass, use the woods for cover. They eat acorns, grasses, buds on trees, and the deer meat is not only tasty, but there's a lack of fat in deer meat and lack of cholesterol that makes it a very healthful meat to eat. No dogs are allowed in deer hunting like are down in the southern United States, but most hunters sit in blinds and wait for the deer to come by. Our deer herd is about 1 million. 750,000 hunters will take about 150,000 deer or so, and with our new, very tough poaching penalties, I expect, Bob, that the legal kill will go up significantly within a year or two.
Well, you could be right. There should be about as many deer this year hanging at Tuck's Buckpole when we show up there for a report. The only place deer are really down is in the western part of the UP and some localized areas in the northwest part of the Lower Peninsula. There are plenty of deer, however, throughout the southern part of Michigan.
That's encouraging to a lot of us. Deer hunting is a big season, and it's right around the corner. And we're putting rabbit season right here after deer season, not because it just opened, because it didn't. It's been open from September 15th all the way through March 31st. It's our longest game season. Rabbits are plentiful. They reproduce just like their reputation, which is frequently. Our southern cottontails like woodlots and fields. The northern snowshoe hares prefer swamps and pine plantations, but both are very good eating. Like squirrel, they work very well in chicken recipes. Now, rabbits can be hunted without dogs, but beagles are the favorite sidekick of rabbit hunters. And after deer season, when we have a few inches of snow on the ground, that's the best time, the most popular time to hunt rabbits. Heavy snows in December often close down hunting activity, but in an average year, hunters will take 1 million bunnies in Michigan. That's only a smidgen of the number that live there.
One of the big problems has been, Fred, is snowshoes have not been, the snowshoe rabbits, the varying hares, have not been in good abundance in the last 5 or 6 years. However, word from the North Country, the UP and the Northern Lower, is they are up a little bit this year. Cottontails, I don't think I've seen a year where I've seen so many of them. And if the weather's good in December and people can get out, it's going to be just a gangbuster season.
Looks good for rabbits, looks good for a lot of species, and I tell you, as far as success goes, elk is the best prospect of all. Elk season's a big season because of all the attention it attracts. To qualify for the December 9th season through the 14th hunt, you need to have your name in the lottery type of drawing. How many applicants?
There'll be at least 45, 50,000.
And how many hunters will hunt?
About 95, 100.
Yeah, and I tell you, elk are a prize, though, because they're so large, 5 times the amount of venison on a big elk than a deer. It's good meat. The big bulls also make majestic trophies, along with their food value on the table. Elk stay up there in the Pigeon River Forest because they don't care for a lot of people activity. That's why other areas of the state aren't suitable for elk, even though there might be food there for them. Elk are hunted like deer, and out of about 1,100 animals we have in the state, the DNR wants to see almost 10% of them removed because of the problems they're causing in the agricultural areas bordering Pigeon River.
Those crop damage reports are way up again this year. I would suspect that over the next few years we're going to see even an increase in the number of permits. This year, the odds are long, about 1 in 400 of getting a permit. But boy, if you get a permit, you're going to get an elk.
Overall, Bob, I'd say the hunting seasons in Michigan this year look excellent, something to really look forward to this fall in Michigan outdoors. Great hunting it looks like ahead this fall, but don't forget about the fishing. We have some of the best fishing of the year right around the corner. Why, Wilderness Supply up in Ontonagon says the kings up there have been running 12 to 20 pounds. A 13-pound walleye was brought in this past week. Some of the best stories I've heard in a long time from Thor's Minnow Shack in Munising. He says a fella caught a pike, well, almost caught a pike a week ago, lost the lure, the whole schmear. A guy came in with that pike and the lure just the other day. Crappies have still been hitting up in that area, and bluegill, some big bluegill from that neck of the woods. Also, Thor says more bear have been seen in this area. More bear have also been reported over in the Sault Ste. Marie area by Riverview Sports and have been seen in some time. Salmon are still in the St. Mary's River. Good reports of perch from Muskong Bay. The walleye and the pike have been steady. Moving down here off Rogers City, Adrian Sport Shop says the salmon are in. 40 feet of water, 10 feet down, so they're easy to catch and they're in close. Over here in Charlevoix, the bluefin charter people say they're waiting for that 250,000 king salmon that were planted 4 years ago to come back. Well, they're not going to have 250,000 of them come back, but a lot of them will. And perch, they said last September, October, November, they had the best perch fishing in 25 years, so they're looking for some more of that good perch fishing. Down off Frankfurt, off the piers, Harbor Lights Marina says fishing has been better in close offshore off the piers than out in the boats, and Coho have been in Platte Bay. Chinook, well, Mulhagen's reports at St. Joe. Cleo's in the morning off the piers. J-plugs, 80 to 100 feet of water later in the day. Perch, salmon, walleye, you're liable to catch any of them. All of them have been caught on Hottentots, trolled. According to Harbor Marina, it's been great off the thumb. Jim's Fishing Charters in Lake St. Clair says muskie smallmouth bass have dominated the picture in Lake St. Clair. Brewer's Bait down in Lake Erie says perch off of Turtle Island, and the walleyes are back in good numbers. A good time to get out fishing, great time of the year, and you might end up in our trophy book. It was a trophy evening for Mike Thomas from Saginaw back on July 22nd. He was casting a Bagley Big O on Long Lake up in Alpena County. 7 o'clock in the evening, he tied into a nice smallmouth bass. Now at 4.5 pounds, it's a little shy of the DNR Master Angler minimum, but its 20-inch length makes the Stroh's Fishing Award minimum. And here's a smallmouth that easily makes the Master Angler weight. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, 22 inches long, caught by Jeff Radel of Harbor Springs. Jeff was still fishing a night crawler in Lake Michigan in the evening when this trophy hit. Now back to Long Lake, but this time the Long Lake in Grand Traverse County. We find Tom Burrows from Flint who caught an extremely large bluegill. That's a tad over a foot long. What a whopper. But listen to the certified scales weight, 2 pounds even. A night crawler did the trick. This makes the third trophy book fish in a row, caught at 7 o'clock at night. Now, a little later in the evening, the catfish began to move. Outdoors Club member Mike Unger from Saginaw was trolling a perch minnow in Wixom Lake near Gladwin, probably fishing for bass or pike or maybe walleye. A 10-pound, 11-ounce channel cat took the minnow, gave Mike a thrill, and put him in the trophy book. And here's Brown with a Brown. That's Captain Steve Brown from Flushing. He caught this brown trout from Frankfurt trolling a longa bomber last July. 21.5 pounds, this big brown has a lamprey scar on its stomach, a reminder that we still have that pest to contend with in the Great Lakes. Here's a pretty lake trout, the kind they grow up in the UP. Larry Lindquist from Munising was fishing off his home port, trolling a fly that he tied himself, when just after lunch, this 25-pound, 10-ounce lake trout grabbed it. It's 39 inches long, qualifies for both Master Angler and Stroh's Fishing Awards, and puts Larry Lindquist at the top of the heap as our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Angler of the Week.
There was a big change that took place this year in the bill that raised hunting and fishing license fees, and that was to allow a person to go ahead and buy a second deer license before or after they've already taken their first deer. This is a big change, and to find out what impact it might have on the deer herd, I talked to Acting Wildlife Chief George Burgoyne.
Overall, it should have no impact at all on the deer herd. The extra harvest of antlered deer should be coming at a time when it won't impact the deer population at all. The areas that may have additional pressure, the deer are also much more wary, so I don't think we'll see any biological impact. If there were any impact, and we will be looking over the next few years to try to detect whether anything is wrong, and if it is, we'll pursue a change to take care of that. But we don't expect to see any impact.
George, don't you think a lot of the wife licenses that maybe the wives didn't actually go hunting will be eliminated under this system?
I think that's certainly a possibility that in a lot of times when Grandma's name appeared on the license because her son or grandson really wanted to get out and do some more hunting, we'll see that disappear because the son or grandson can legally buy a second license and be out there and enjoy hunting with a clear conscience.
The second deer license isn't the only major change in this year's hunting laws. In fact, there are quite a few. One of the new laws, which is going to be quite controversial, makes it illegal to shoot a fox, raccoon, or mink without a fur taker's license. No longer can a hunter use a small game license to take these critters. The cost of the fur taker's license is $15.25. And remember, if you're going to trap anything or hunt any fur bears, you need a fur harvester's license this year. Elk permit applications are available right now at sporting goods stores and DNR offices across the state. The cost is $4 and is non-refundable. The deadline to submit them to the DNR is September 15th. Waterfowl seasons are set to begin within a month. However, applications for hunting in some of the managed areas are due at the DNR offices by September 16th. There's a $3 non-refundable charge for this drawing. There's also a new $3 charge this year to submit an application for an antlerless deer permit. The due date for these permits is September 24th. As has been the case in the last 8 or 9 years, the DNR will not notify those applicants that are not successful in the draw. And in this week's outdoor reminder, rabbit, squirrel, grouse, and woodcock seasons begin next Monday, September 15th.
Now it's time to open a can of worms unlike we've seen almost in the 5 years here on Michigan Outdoors. This has to do with a little incident with Coleman Young salmon fishing without a license. Here is a typical letter, and we've gotten a number of them. What Mayor Young did, catching salmon without a license and salmon stamp, is a nasty slap in the face of 1 million and some honest fishermen. The mayor should have the book thrown at him thrice over. Tom McLaughlin from Bloomfield Hills, you are one of many people who felt that way. When I first heard about that incident, because it was quoted that the mayor said in the paper when asked, "Hey, Mayor, you got a fishing license?" He probably said something like, "Hell no, I don't believe in them." Well, that bugged me, too. I said, "Hey, Garner, when I saw you, Monday, yeah. I said, hey, we ought to do something. He ought to have the book thrown at him. I agree."
You were bugged. You were fried about that.
Well, I sure was, because I thought that he was really putting down the DNR, putting down us fishermen who buy our licenses.
A public official doing that.
You checked on it, and what did you find from Herb Burns?
Well, Herb Burns, who is the chief law enforcement guy for the Department of Natural Resources, wanted to, he was viscerally upset, too. He wanted to ticket Coleman Young in the worst way. The only trouble is Herb got to checking in on it, and he says, number one, they thought everybody in the entourage that he interviewed honestly thought that the charter boat skipper provided the license. He provided the bait, the tackle, the boat, the expertise, and all that, the ice. They thought that he provided the license. The other thing is, Herb says he can't ticket him because no conservation officer witnessed this violation of the misdemeanor. You can come in and say, I caught 6 fish without a license the other day, 6 fish over the limit, and there is nothing a CO can do about it.
But this doesn't involve any intentional violation. I maintain that Coleman has done what all of us have done, and doggone it, if you haven't, I'm surprised. Forget to renew your fishing license, get out on opening day and realize you haven't, or drive when your driver's license has expired and you forgot you were supposed to have it renewed this year. That happens, and it's not a big his remark was flippant, and the mayor's that way.
And it's no excuse. You're absolutely right. If they'd have caught him doing that, they should have ticketed him and thrown the book at him.
Sure,
I agree, but
I don't think that he meant it that way. And Sportsman, I want you to keep in mind one thing about Mayor Young. He is the one voice in Detroit that to the city council have said, I will veto any legislation to ban handguns or restrict the ownership of the right to bear arms in Detroit. Keep that in mind, Sportsman, all you NRA people who value that right very dearly. Coleman Young is our man on that issue in Detroit. He's done more for anybody on that subject. So I want to cut Coleman Young a little bit of slack on this, and I would encourage you to do the same. Could we lighten it up a little bit, Bob?
Please,
Let's take a
please.
look at our outdoor quiz.
what is the fastest flying game bird and how fast can it fly? The red-breasted merganser hunted in some areas has been clocked at 80 miles per hour, making it the fastest game bird in the outdoors.
Here's a recipe that does not win the aesthetic award for the best-looking game recipe, for
Definitely
sure.
not.
It came in as a runner-up in our Fish and Wild Game Cooking Contest last March, and it's one that so many people say they don't like because of how it looks. This is sweet and sour Belgium Rabbit that Gloria Warren from Dearborn Heights contributed, and she won a second place with this. And I, despite what other people say, I defend this. I like this
You liked this
recipe.
last March during the
loved
cooking
it.
contest.
I loved it. I like it has prunes in it and so on, and you know the prunes make the meat look so dark.
Right. Give
The-
it a good gravy flavor.
Bob hasn't stopped eating though.
Heck, I like this one when we reviewed it on the show, or on the special.
Yep, there it is. Prunes, onions.
And a whole bottle of sweet red wine, and it kind of counteracts the prunes, actually.
It does because this recipe does not taste heavily laden with wine.
No, it doesn't. You got your vinegar and water.
And the rabbit.
Right. Now, we trimmed the rabbit really good here, Fred, just like you say, week after week.
Well, rabbit is dark meat because it's an animal that runs. It uses all its muscles. The back right there.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow.
It's delicious, dark meat.
Delicious meat. You're going to add vinegar to this,
Right.
huh?
Now, we're going to kind of marinate this, actually. The vinegar and water will, a lot of people will soak their rabbits to draw out the blood and
Well,
the bad taste, they say.
I like using rabbit or salt water
Right.
overnight with small game. It brings the blood
They do
out
the
of it.
very same thing. Now, vinegar will give it just a little bit different flavor also. Now, you want to pat it dry because you don't want all that vinegar flavor into your casserole or however you're going to prepare your meat.
And that's the rabbit right there. After
is.
marinating overnight, you can see a little, it's
There's
lighter.
a difference. Right.
It's lighter.
Transparent almost. Take some of that out. And we're going to fry this in butter, and we're going to fry the onions first here. Now, kind of deceiving because your onions are going to brown very quickly in the brown butter.
Well, and the prunes we get to later blacken the onions,
Yep,
very
they sure
frankly.
do. Yep. And this doesn't take very long to fry. Just want to brown both sides of this.
No breading.
Absolutely not. And like I said, you're going to add the whole bottle of wine, and it's just kind of actually stew in the wine.
If it looks like chicken, that's because rabbit has some characteristics of chicken
Sure
as far as
does.
flavor goes.
Now
And
this,
here-
like
how
I said,
much?
you add this whole bottle of sweet red wine, and it will counteract those prunes. There's not that many prunes in here. There's only like 12 to 18 prunes
I
in
don't know
this.
why we brought up prunes so much and you keep talking about counteracting prunes. Prunes taste great.
Prunes need counteracting sometimes.
I don't know. I like the flavor.
In fact, don't they kind of act themselves?
Well, you guys, I like eating the prunes out of this recipe as well as the onions, as well as the rabbit.
Okay, you got a deal. We'll eat the rabbit.
This is a case, Fred, I got to get this in, where the student, I think, even did better than the originator of the recipe. I complained it was a slight bit dry. This isn't dry.
Well,
I don't know what you did get.
Cooking for our wild game cooking contest
Right.
is sometimes under adverse conditions.
that's right.
But look at this.
Oh, I loved it anyway.
Look at this rabbit come right off the bone and look at inside. The meat just looks like dark meat on turkey. Scrumptious.
Oh, absolutely.
Gloria Warren, in my book, you've got a winner. I love this sweet and
big
sour.
winner.
A big winner. Kathy, no prunes for you. I'm sure you're broken up. Folks, I hope you can get outdoors this weekend, catch some fish, enjoy the outdoors. It's a great place to be. See you next week. Along with their food value on the table, elk stay up there in the Pigeon River Forest because they don't care for a lot of people activity. That's why other areas of the state aren't suitable for elk, even though there might be food there for them. Elk are hunted like deer, and out of about 1,100 animals we have in the state, the DNR wants to see almost 10% is bordering Pigeon River.
Those crop damage reports are way up again this year. I would suspect that over the next few years, we're going to see even an increase in the number of permits. This year, the odds are long, about 1 in 400 of getting a permit. But boy, if you get a permit, you're going to get an elk.
Overall, Bob, I'd say the hunting seasons in Michigan this year look excellent, something to really look forward to this fall in Michigan outdoors.